everybody. Welcome to the webinar dedicated to the issue of data discovery.
Can you hear us? We hope you do. Just a reminder that we are recording this webinar. We plan to put it online. Are you okay with that?
Today's data discovery webinar
is organized by CESSDA and CSDA.
We will shortly introduce ourselves. I am Johana Chylíková.
And I'm Martin Vávra.
We are researchers from the Czech Social Science Data Archive, or shortly CSDA. There is also our guest with us, Kristýna Bašná. Hello.
Hello, everyone. I'm a sociologist at the Institute of Sociology of the Czech Academy of Sciences, and I will be talking about my experience with finding data for my research.
Today's webinar is organized by CESSDA and CSDA. CESSDA is the consortium of European social science data archives. It connects data archives across Europe and manages different projects, for example, the training in data management and data discovery. The CSDA is a member of CESSDA and provides data services in the Czech Republic. Today, our colleagues from ADP, which is the Slovenian Data Archive, help us to organize this webinar.
As we will be speaking, you may have a question regarding the issues we will talk about. So don't hesitate to ask us. Just type your question into the question box on your screen. You can ask anything related to the issue of discovering research data.
We already mentioned we are recording this webinar. We will make it publicly available and you will be able to access it on the CESSDA YouTube channel or at the CESSDA training website.
This webinar is for students and researchers in social sciences who want to know how to find secondary data. By secondary data, we mean data collected by somebody else. Today, we will show you how to get the secondary data. Finding data and using secondary data is a good thing because it allows you to get data for free. It's true that sometimes you must pay for data, but mostly they are for free. If there exists data that are suitable for your research, you don't need to conduct your own data collection. And now we will ask your experience. So have you ever been looking for the secondary data? You can see the poll on your screen and answer yes or no. So we will give you few seconds and we kindly ask you to show us your experience. So by now you should have answered. So let's see the results. What do we have here? So most of us have already been looking for secondary data, but there are some people who have not. So that's good because we will show them how to do it today. So let's move forward.
Today's webinar is based on the CESSDA expert guide, specifically the chapter 7 called Discover. This chapter is a tutorial that informs about data resources and how to work with them. The Discover chapter was published in January this year, so it is available to all of you at the CESSDA website. Everything we will be speaking about today is based on the Discover chapter. So in case you miss something or just don't understand, you can find it in the chapter.
Today, we will first talk about the process of data discovery. It will take about 20 minutes. Then our guest, sociologist Kristýna Bašná, will talk about her research and about how she was discovering the research data for her study on democracy and political culture. Then there will be some time for your questions.
The central issue in this webinar will be the process of data discovery. We will guide you through this process and show and describe each of its 5 elements. These elements are: first, have a clear picture of the data you need. Second, find appropriate data resources. Third, set up a search query and search the data archive. Fourth, select the data that conform to your demands. And last, evaluate the quality of data you obtained.
After our webinar, you should be able to set up a search strategy. You should know that there exist data repositories that provide a lot of research data. You should also know that there exist different access policies to research data. And additionally, you should know that the data have a certain quality and you should be aware of it.
So let's get started. We start with the first element of the discovery process. Before you start searching for data, you must have a very clear picture in your head. You must know what the data you are looking for. To find out, you must ask yourself several questions. Why do you need the data? You may need them for research or for teaching purposes. If you need them for research, what is the issue your study deals with? Then ask yourself, what is your research question? A research question is one or more questions that your study wants to answer. For example, do reading habits in childhood relate to attained education, or are anti-immigrant sentiments related to age and education? Your research question is always related to the theory you are using, and it clearly shows you what concepts and what population you are going to work with.
What construct are you using and what are their indicators? Let's say your construct is the employment and your indicators are profession, education, and years of practice. You want your data to include these indicators, so you look for data which probably contain variables corresponding to these indicators. In case your study is a replication study, or your study follows up some other study, you should use the same variables as those that were used in previous studies. And sometimes it can be very problematic to find exactly the same variables. Ask yourself what type of data you need. Maybe you conduct a quantitative study or a qualitative study. Or maybe you can conduct both. If you are going to use quantitative data, your discovery process will be much easier. You will be probably looking for the survey data, and they are stored in many data archives across Europe. In case you want to use qualitative data, by which we mean, for example, data from in-depth interviews, it may be very challenging because qualitative data are less available for secondary use. Also ask yourself, what is the population you want to study? Data may be representative for various kinds of population. For example, general population of a country, adults, migrants, local authorities, single mothers, and many others.
You must also know what is the unit of analysis. Individuals, households, regions, or countries. And you must also know what geographical area do you want to cover. A specific country, specific region, all EU countries, or as many countries as possible. There are many options.
We have just described the first phase of the data discovery process. At this point, you should have a picture about what data you want to look for. The next step in the process is the locating the right data resources. Such data resources are various types of data repositories, like websites of data archives, registries of data repositories, and other places where to find data.
res3data.org lists over 2,000 data repositories from all research disciplines. OpenDoor, or Directory of Academic Open Access Repositories, offers 3,500 academic open access repositories. Important examples of other repositories are Open Air Explorer and Fair Sharing.
Other way to find data is a specialized search engine. Not a long time ago, Google started its dataset search engine. Also, this Google dataset search may be useful. It is still limited and does not offer a complete picture of available data. You may use it, but it definitely won't show you the whole picture. Apart from the Google dataset search, there are so-called metadata aggregators like DataCite and DataSearch. DataCite gathers metadata for each digital object identifier, so-called DOI, assigned to a dataset. The disadvantage is that you will not discover datasets with a different kind of persistent identifier. DataSearch is another aggregator, which is administered by the publishing company Elsevier.
There are other places to look for data. For example, domain-aggregated data catalogs. In Europe, the most important aggregated data catalog in social sciences is the CESSDA data catalog. It contains metadata or data stored in CESSDA data archives. The catalog's search engine enables filtering by topic, data collection years, country, or language. The advantage is that you do not have to query every CESSDA data archive separately. Disadvantage is that you will not find data which weren't archived by CESSDA members.
The last option to look for data are scholarly journals. There exist specialized data journals which publish descriptions of scientifically valuable datasets. For example, the journal Research Data Journal for the Humanities and Social Sciences, or the other one, Scientific Data, which is a branch journal to Nature. These journals or articles in these journals are mostly dedicated to natural sciences, but sometimes it publishes data articles from other fields of science.
Do not forget that registries, aggregators, and specialized search engines include only data resources that were indexed. So the registry may not show you the complete picture. If you do not find the data repository or individual dataset in the registry, go to another. Maybe it indexes the data repository which is more suitable for you.
Now you know in which repository to look for data. But how to actually look for the data within the repository? You must formulate a search query. What does it mean? It usually means to find the keywords or terms that will allow you to find the desired data. First, find out how the repository system organizes the data, what metadata and data is stored and where. It's also useful to register as a user, because you will be available to access more functions. You can also use advanced search functions. It allows you to find more suitable data, and sometimes it's the only way how to find the data you need. And in case you cannot find what you were looking for, just go and ask the archive staff for help. You can also use the special Thesaurus that contains search terms. Using terms from the Thesaurus may be very helpful.
The European Language Social Science Thesaurus, or shortly ELSST, contains terms corresponding to social science concepts. For example, you want data related to work. ELSST will tell you that the better term to use for searching is employment, and it also shows you terms and concepts that are related to employment. ELSST includes terms in 13 European languages, so it allows you to search in languages you don't know.
At this point, you have found data and you must decide whether you want to use them or not. Maybe you have found relevant data and everything is okay, but maybe you have found data that are off topic. In such a case, you must start again and find better keywords. It's possible that you have retrieved too many results, and these results are mostly irrelevant. And maybe you have found too few results, or maybe no results at all. You can try to rephrase your search query and hope in better results. There are some useful tips what to do when you cannot find what you want.
First is use appropriate words in appropriate fields. For example, you are looking for data that reflect the concept of postmaterialism. If you type postmaterialism into the question text field in a search engine, the search will retrieve nothing because the word postmaterialism is not included in the wording of the respective questionnaire. Items dealing with postmaterialism usually ask respondents about particular attitudes, for example, agreement with statement, people should have more say in important political decisions. Thus, you should look for postmaterialism in the keywords field or concept field, or try to find other keywords that will be useful in searching. It's useful to use the Thesaurus.
In case you have found too few or no results, broaden your scope. Maybe your search query was too narrow. Find more terms that relate to what you are looking for and be less restrictive when using filters and search operators. It may also happen that you will find too many results. In such a case, choose more detailed search terms, use more words in the search fields, and be more restrictive when using search operators and search filters.
When you find data, you should ask yourself whether the data seem relevant for your research question. Remember, always use appropriate indicators of theoretical concepts. By indicators, we mean the variables in the dataset and items included in the questionnaire. Always think about how well the variables you have found apply to your concepts. If you use variables that do not fit to your concept, the results of your study will be wrong.
When you finally found the data, it's time to evaluate their quality. You can do it before you download the data because documentation and metadata are usually available to non-registered users. The documentation to the dataset should contain all the information that is necessary for you to decide whether you want to download the data. You have to know what information was collected, from whom, when, and where, and you must also know who collected the data and when it was collected and what was the mode of data collection. Learn what was the purpose of creating data. Was it research? Was it purpose of social policy, maybe marketing or something else? You should also know how the data was processed. Were there any changes in data values? Were any values deleted? Any change in the data should be, any information about change in data should be available. We just mentioned a few important things about the data quality, but there are several others you should be aware of. If you want to learn more, just look into the Data Management Expert Guide in the Chapter 2 called Organize and Document, and there you will find much more information about the data quality.
If the data conform to your demands, you want to download them. At this point, the most important thing is the data access, which means the terms and conditions under which you can access and use the data. The data can be open so that anyone can access them without registration, or they can be open after registration and you must register to download them. There exist other access conditions that are more strict. For more information about these strict access conditions, see the Discovery chapter in the Expert Guide. The rules for using the data usually allows you to download data into your computer. But in some cases, data access is restricted and the data can be used under strict conditions, for example, in the safe room in the premises of a data repository.
Also bear in mind that sometimes accessing data costs money and time. The cost can be high. For example, when you have to cover travel expenses to a secured data center where there it's allowed to analyze data. You must take into account such costs in case you are interested in data that are under strict access conditions.
When you found data and you want to download them, think about the data format. Data may not always be available in the format you need. In some cases, raw data may have a specific structure, and the analysis of such data may require specialized software and sometimes also very special skills. Data archives usually offer to download data in the widely used current standard analytical programs. However, in some rare cases, the format may be old, out of date, and it may cause some troubles.
When you download a dataset, look at its structure and variables. Check whether it contains all the variables that are supposed to be included according to the documentation. And finally, let us say something about citing data. When you publish your research, you should always cite the dataset you have used. It is a matter of research ethics to acknowledge the work of other researchers. In the citation, always use persistent identifier called DOI, or digital object identifier, if it's available. You may see on the screen that there exist formats for citing data. For example, format by the organization data site. See how it looks like. It always must contain information about the creator, the publication year, title, version, publisher, resource type, and identifier if it's available. Now we are at the end of the data discovery process. It's time for our colleague to introduce herself and start her own presentation. Our colleague Kristýna Bašná will tell you about how she was discovering data for her own study. She will tell us about how she was discovering the research data for her study on democracy and political culture.
Hello, my name is Kristýna, and I'm a postdoctoral fellow at the Czech Academy of Sciences. I work with different secondary data very frequently at my research. Today, I will tell you a bit more about how I was searching data for one of my projects. In my research, I was looking at the relationships between political culture and democracy, and specifically, I was replicating an article written by Muller and Seligson in 1994. Muller and Seligson found that there is a strong relationship between political culture and democracy. However, their article is today very old, therefore I wanted to replicate their analysis and to find out whether their model still holds today. My research question therefore was, what are the relationship between political culture and properties of state, civic culture, attitudes, and change in the level of democracy? For my project, I needed to find a large number of different data, such as data on GDP or level of democracy. But the core variable in my research was variable measuring political culture. So today I will present my search for this very variable. As you can see, the question aims at measuring basic kinds of attitudes concerning society, and specifically, I was interested to see whether respondents believe that society must be gradually improved by reforms, because that was the very question that was used by Muller and Seligson in their article in 1994. This question on political culture has been included in 4 different well-known large-scale cross-national surveys: the World Value Survey, European Value Study, Latin American Public Opinion Project, and the Eurobarometer. Unfortunately, each survey is stored separately. Therefore, I had to find the location of all the surveys, download the data, and merge them before I could start with my analysis. In the following slides, I will show you where you can find these 4 surveys and how to download the data. All the 4 surveys include a large number of different variables and different countries and years. Therefore, they are very suitable for different analysis in social sciences. So the first survey that I used for my research was the World Value Survey, which is a well-known survey that covers a large number of countries around the world and also a large number of years, starting in 1981. It has its own website and data can be downloaded for free only upon registration. The link to the data is at the upper left corner of this slide. Similarly, the European Value Study covers a large number of years, but is geographically limited mostly to the European countries. The data can be downloaded from the guesses catalog. Again, data is for free, however, registration is needed. As the World Value Survey that I presented in the previous slide and the European Value Study are focused on very similar research areas, they decided to cooperate and they harmonized the data using common dictionary. This allows users to easily construct integrated data file covering 113 countries and more than 500,000 cases, which is very useful. The World Value Survey website also offers a simple guide helping with construction of the merged dataset. My third data source was the LAPOP. It's the Latin American Public Opinion Survey, which its aim is similar as with the previous two surveys, and it has also similar variables. The difference is that it is regionally restricted to Latin American countries. Merged longitudinal data can be downloaded for free, even without registration. Link to the survey can be found again at the top left corner. Finally, the Eurobarometer survey focuses on data at the European level. The data are stored at the guesses catalog. Again, it's same for the European Value Study. So data can be downloaded for free upon registration. Unfortunately, the Eurobarometer does not provide longitudinal data, so it is needed to download the data separately for each year. However, the guesses catalog has a very nice feature that allows retrieving questions by keywords. The link is again at the top left corner. With putting a keyword into a search box, the catalog will retrieve all the Eurobarometer surveys that included the question, and then you can download each survey separately. However, finding the data was actually not the end of the work of my research. Combining data from multiple sources is not an easy task. Even if the question of interest is the same, as was in my case, there might be differences in other variables, such as country names, or there might be different spelling. There might be also weights that you need to apply before you start with your analysis, and also you have to be aware of missing data. Overall, it is crucial to write every step down and keep log of all changes to make sure that your approach is correct. This will be all for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristýna. Thank you for your talk. And now let's get back shortly to the discovery chapter in the Data Management Expert Guide. We will very shortly tell you about other useful information you may find there. There are few very rich lists of data repositories in Europe and around the world. But there is also a list of other institutions that provide secondary data. In case you are interested in international comparative research, you will like our long list of international research projects that offer comparative data. And finally, in case you do a research on aging, we prepared a detailed description of key data resources for research on aging in Europe. Now, we want to thank you for your attention, and let's have some time for your questions. I will shortly look whether we have any messages from you here, and I don't see any, so it seems that you have not posted any question. In case you want to post some, just type it, but we have got nothing. So in case there will be no questions, you can stop now. You can see on the screen several contacts in case you wanted to ask us something. Maybe you still have some questions. You can send us an email. You can send it to the training CESSDA EU, which is the whole project under which this Discovery webinar was conducted, or you can email us separately. Me, Johanna, my colleagues Martin and Kristýna. So now we will thank you for your attention, and we thank you were with us. Thank you very much and goodbye.